Okay, so we finished up last time on this particular slide, so we'll go back to it. We actually didn't finish it, we were on it. So genotype is the specific trait. So for this example, I was showing you big P for homozygous dominant. That's the genotype. And the genotype obviously would be that it's purple, right? I'm just gonna go purple here. Horrible, horrible. Sorry, guys. Lordy, lordy. And then the genotype of little p then would be just that. The two alleles represent little p, and this would be white. The genotype is that it's obviously recessive and it's homozygous. Now the phenotype, and so again, if we did heterozygous, it would be big P, little p. The genotype is specifically that, it's heterozygous. The phenotype is what it physically appears as. What does the organism look like? So this guy obviously is going to look phenotypically purple. This one is going to phenotypically look white. However, what does this phenotypically look like? This guy is going to look purple as well. Remember why? Why is it going to look purple? Because the dominant is going to mask the recessive. So this guy kind of is in charge. So the phenotype here is that it's purple as well. So that's important when we're thinking about things. Now we can have traits that are what we call multi-allelic, meaning they have many alleles. One example of this is so that gene has several allele forms. Our blood type in our blood is what we call ABO blood type. And so this is an example of where we possibly could see that there are more alleles, right? Because we could have A blood, we can have B blood, we can have O blood types. So, oh, and then we can have AB blood. So there's 4 different types. And so we could have different alleles then. So we have this I representing an A for the A antigen, an I representing a B for the B antigen, and I by itself means it doesn't have any of the antigens. But what you need to see here is this. So if you actually phenotype, so what does it look like that you actually have A blood? So you could have AA or AO blood. This is your genotype, right? So it looks a little different. If you're B, it'd be BB or BO. Then it would look like this. If you have an AB blood type, that means you have an A from one parent and a B from one parent. And I can't really see this very O, but if you had O, basically it's a little. So it just kind of shows you how there's lots of variability in genetics, and we're kind of looking at crossing things. So again, the genotype is the actual genes, the alleles that you have. Phenotype is the physical characteristics, what it looks like. Okay, just showing you a little bit more about ABO blood. Now I want you to think about this for a second though. So genotypes are what they are, right? They are your genes. They are what you have. When you get one from mom, you get one allele from mom, one allele from dad to make up that specific trait. Phenotype is what things look like. So here's just an example of environment and phenotypes. And these are shells. They're all the same type of shell. But what is different with them? You can see physically they look a little different. And so how can that change? So let's think of our bodies, right? So phenotypes are physical appearance on the outside one another. We have many phenotypes that we can see that are different traits. Hair color, hair texture. We can see eye color. We can see whether you have freckles or no freckles. We can see if you have a widow's peak, which is where you have a little kind of point at the top of your forehead where your hair is. We can have attached earlobes and unattached earlobes. We can have let's see, a hitchhiker's thumb or just kind of this normal looking thumb. We can have different I said hair textures, hair color. We can also have different skin colors, different pigments of our skin, right? So there's lots of traits we can have. Hair and no hair on our thumbs. That's a genetic trait. So there's lots of things we can physically see, but let's think about that. Does the environment change any of that? Does the environment change your hair color sometimes? Does your environment change your skin color at times? Does your environment change your eye color? Not really, but there are some things that we can change, and the environment you're around might change them. They might change a color, they might change a texture. So even though we have genes for something specific, the environment can impact how things appear to one another, naturally or obviously unnaturally. You might originally have really dark hair, but you might dye your hair so it's a different color. A red, a blonde, whatever the case may be. So we can affect the phenotype sometimes. And that's what you kind of see here. These shells are affected by different things in the ocean, where they're located. So what part of the ocean, what ocean are they located in? Maybe what the composition of the ocean material actually is more acidic versus basic or neutral. How much sunlight is reaching the shells? What kind of sand the shells might be near. So there's a lot of things that can affect how the shells would appear as their phenotype, but their genotype is very similar. Now, a lot of times we want to track the inheritance of something. So from generation 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, so on and so forth. You may have learned about this in lab a little bit, but we're just going to kind of recap it here because we'll see this. Males obviously have a box. Females are represented as a circle. If it's unaffected, meaning if we're talking about a disease, there is no shading in. If it's affected and we know that, it is shaded in. If it's unknown, we just kind of give it this appearance of lines through it. And if somebody has deceased, we usually put a line through that person to represent their being deceased. So here again, it's just a basic pedigree chart. Male versus female. In this case, red is affected and blue is unaffected. So this is an affected male. These two have mated, and that's what that line means. And the line coming down represents any offspring that they possibly could have created. So here we have one offspring, a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. So they have 5 children. Here we have a male, a female, a female, a female. So they usually go in order. This is the eldest, this is the youngest. So they have 2 males that are older, 3 younger females. Here we have an affected male, unaffected male, affected female, unaffected female, affected female. So first of all, let's see, that's a generation, that's a offspring gap. Affected, not affected, not affected. One thing you can think about too is sometimes you can look at this very blatantly to see if it's something that we call sex-linked, meaning it only really affects a particular gender. Here we don't, male, female, female. So this person married somebody, or they have mated another female who's unaffected, and with that they had 2 offspring. There was a 50-50 chance that whatever this disease is, their offspring would get it, and the chance is one of them received it. Here, this person is unaffected, it marries another unaffected person, they have mated, and therefore their 3 offspring represent as normal, unaffected. This person has not mated, so there's no offspring there, and so hasn't this individual. But the last has. She was affected, this person was unaffected, 50-50 chance that their children would be affected. If they had 4 children, which they did, 50-50 that they are affected. So this is parental, like grandparents, then parents, and then maybe your generation, or however you want to look at it. So it's a good visual, a real glimpse real quick when we're looking at disease and affecting families and how it actually kind of creates this. Now, one way to find out what that generation might look like. So how do we know if these 2 basically individuals mated? How do we know the ratio of the offspring getting this affected disease? Well, we do what we call a Punnett square. And this is what we consider monohybrid. Mono means one trait, so we're crossing one trait. Okay, and so we create what we call a square. And basically, when it's monohybrid, we basically have a box. So we're going to go back to our flowers, okay, of the pea plants, and we're going to cross a heterozygous with a homozygous recessive. So remember, heterozygous is a big B, or excuse me, a big letter and a little letter, and homozygous recessive would be 2 little letters. All right, so this is our genotype. We know this. This was told to us. So we set up our Punnett square like this. So what happens is we set up our males versus our females, right, on one side. I'm not too particular about which side it goes on. Some people are, and scientists probably really are, but at this point, I just want you to understand this. So here was our heterozygous. So remember, you can only give one allele at a time. So this person can only either give this big A. This is what we call independent assortment, or a little a. And this individual can only give little a's, but they can only give it at one at a time. Okay? So what happens is we basically have 4 possible offsprings. Right? So that's why we have our 4 boxes here. And sometimes it's easy to just draw the 4 boxes out and then kind of put your information where it needs to go. So I'm going to actually continue this line upward because I think sometimes that's helpful to see that these are separate. Now, what we're going to do is basically, if this was egg, see, this is sperm and this is egg, basically all we can give off is a big A, and all that this person can give off is a little a. So we do what we call distribution. And when we distribute, you can see now that it's kind of like this one is going to go here, and this person can give this. So this is a heterozygous option, right? I'm just going to put hetero. Okay, if we move over to our next box, this person can only give a little a, and the same thing with this. We can only give a little a. So this person is, I'm just going to put home recessive, recess. Okay, now if this is a possibility, again, big A, little a, little a, little a. So when we think about this, what do we know? Well, whoops. What do we know? We know that we have a 50-50 chance of having, let's see. So we have a 50, if it's asking about a chance or percentage, it might be a 50-50% that we have someone who's heterozygous versus homozygous, right? Homozygous recessive, that is. So it's a 50-50, or the ratio actually would be 1 to 1. There's a 1-to-1 chance that this is heterozygous or the offspring is homozygous recessive. Okay, we're going to practice another one. So here's another example. In humans, brown eyes, or big B, are dominant over blue eyes. Eye color is much more complicated than that, but we're just going to go with this basic scenario. A brown-eyed man marries a blue-eyed woman, and they have 3 children, 2 of whom are brown-eyed and 1 who is blue-eyed. Draw a Punnett square that illustrates this marriage. What is the man's genotype? What are the genotypes of the children? Okay, so what you would do is practice this out real quick. Grab a piece of paper. We have a brown-eyed male. Okay, it's not telling us whether he's homozygous or heterozygous, but he's brown eyes. And then he has a female who he marries, who is blue-eyed. Now, we know blue-eyed is recessive, so it has to be homozygous recessive. So she has a little b, a little b. He doesn't quite have a little b or a big B. We don't know if he's a big B or big B, little b. So we might have to kind of play this out. So what are the genotypes of the parents? Let's think about that. So mom has blue eyes, so she definitely has to be recessive. So if she's recessive, she's going to have a little b and a little b. That's what she has to have. That is her genotype. Now, the father has brown eyes. So again, which is he? Is he these? Or is he this? Would you know right off the top, right? Do you know? What was the chance? Did they have blue-eyed children? Yes? No? If not, go back to that slide. So if we do this, what has to happen is that because they have a blue-eyed child, we know mom is this, right? We know mom is this, and we know dad has to be at least this. But if they had a blue-eyed child, remember, you get 1 allele from mom and 1 allele from dad. In order to be blue eyes, you have to have 2 little b's. We know that dad had to have this, right? And so when they crossed, we have 1 hetero option, right? Because all mom can give is a little b. So all of these have the ability to have a little b. Okay, but that's if, oh, look at, I did this wrong. All right, I'll start the next video.